Good day, ladies and gentlemen. The Ghana Statistical Service has today released the Consumer Price Index and inflation for March 2026. Let me begin by explaining two key terms. Year-on-year inflation compares prices today with the same time last year. Month-on-month inflation compares prices with the previous month. In March 2026, year-on-year inflation slowed to 3.2%. Down from 3.3% in February 2026. This means, on average, prices are 3.2% higher in March 2026 than they were in March 2025. On a month-on-month basis, prices increased by 0.1% between February and March 2026. This marks the 15th consecutive decline in inflation and the lowest rate recorded since the rebasing of the CPI in 2021. Compared to 22.4% in March last year, inflation has dropped significantly, showing a clear path towards stability. Now let's look at the drivers. Food inflation declined to 2.3% from 2.4% in February, and food prices actually fell by 0.3% over the month. That's between February and March 2026. Non-food inflation also eased slightly to 3.9% from 4%, though prices in this category rose modestly by 0.3% month-on-month. For goods, inflation slowed sharply to 1.7% from 3.2% in February, and prices fell by 1% between February and March 2026. This is important because goods make up nearly 3/4 of what households spend. However, services inflation increased to 7.2% from 3.7% in February, with prices rising by 0.4% in the month. That's between February and March 2026. Looking at the origin, inflation for locally produced items increased to 4.9%. From 4.5% in February, while imported items recorded a negative inflation rate of 0.6% from positive 0.6% in February. Across regions, inflation remains uneven. The Northeast region recorded the highest inflation at 8.6%, while the Savannah region recorded the lowest at negative 4.6%. These differences are likely driven by local supply conditions, transport costs, and market access. In terms of price pressures, a small number of items continue to drive most of the inflation. In March 2026, just 5 items alone accounted for 61.5% of the total inflation of 3.2%. These are charcoal, green plantain, smoked herrings, senior secondary school fees, and large onions. What this means is simple. Most of the pressure households feel is coming from a very small group of everyday essentials. Now, let's look at where prices are rising the fastest. The top 5 highest inflation items are striking. Ginger increased by 61%, green plantain by 59%, charcoal by 53%, cashew by 47%, and palm fruit by 39.6%. Together, these 5 items alone contributed 38.3% of the total inflation in March 2026. So again, a small group of items is doing most of the heavy lifting when it comes to price increases. But there's another side to the story. Some items are actually becoming much cheaper, helping to reduce overall inflation. The 5 items with the lowest inflation are garden eggs, with prices reducing by 60.3%, fried fish by 50.1%, pawpaw by 49.6%, cocoyam leaves by 46.7%, and fresh okra by 44.7%. Together, these items reduce overall inflation by 18.3%. So what does this mean? For government, it's important to maintain fiscal discipline and continue investing in food systems, storage, transport, and market access. For businesses, this is the time to improve efficiency, strengthen local supply chains, and pass on cost savings to consumers. For households, This is a good moment to plan spending carefully, focus on essentials, and build small savings where possible. We would like to express our appreciation to market traders, data providers, the media, and the dedicated staff of Ghana Statistical Service whose work makes this release possible. Ghana Statistical Service remains committed to providing timely, accurate, and credible data to support informed decision-making and national development. Thank you very much.